I'm happy I didn't find Bitcoin earlier, because if I had found Bitcoin or Bitcoin found me in like 10 years, I definitely would have sold, because it's not easy to hold Bitcoin. It's easy to hold because you don't have to do anything, but you have to have the mind to hold it, even if it doubles or triples or 10 doubles in worth, or you lose half your money and you think, oh no, I'm going to lose even more. Maybe I sell. When you find out what Bitcoin really is, that is when this life starts.
Hello and welcome to the Freedom Footprint Show. We are concerned about your freedom footprint, and we want to help you spread as much freedom dioxide as possible. I'm your host, Luke the Pseudofin, and I'm here as always with Knut Svanholm. Good evening, Knut.
Good evening, Luke. Nice to be here.
Nice to see you again. And today I'm excited to have our guest, Björn Tisjö, who is the translator of the Bitcoin standard into Swedish, which is part of the broader Consensus Network mission to bring the Bitcoin standard to as many languages as possible.
Yeah, Björn is the editor of the Swedish version of the Bitcoin standard. So he's sort of the head translator that coordinates all the other translators and tells them what to do and when they have to start from scratch and do the whole thing over again, basically. So, I held that position for a short time in the beginning of the making of this book, but I realized that job was not for me because I'm not meticulous like that. So Björn did me a huge favor in taking over the helm there and translating the book, or making the book happen, basically. So we got it out before Christmas. So the Christmas gift of the year is, of course, my book for Swedish people who can read English, but if you can't, it's the Swedish version of the Bitcoin standard. So welcome, Björn. Nice to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here with you.
Yeah, first, tell us a bit about yourself. You're a former politician, and you saw the intricacies of and stupidity of the Swedish politics scene, and decided to quit all that and pursue some form of Bitcoin career instead. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I feel a bit stupid because it took me so long. It took me almost 20 years to see the politics. I understood it. It is hard to make change in the politics, but I had good positions in my local community, and I thought I did good. But later on, I realized when I learned about money, it was mostly in the pandemic about it. I learned about money, and I learned how the money supply is changed and fixed by a rigged. I should say it's rigged. When I started learning about that and Bitcoin, more and more Bitcoin, I couldn't be in this charade anymore. So I quit politics, because the politics to me is once I learned about money, I learned that money is above the politics. And therefore, politics is totally irrelevant. Yeah, we have private banks creating money and politicians that demand taxes in this money that the banks can create out of thin air. So it's like the meme. If they can print money, why pay taxes? I came to that conclusion. So I didn't want to participate in this game. And I think that as a Bitcoiner, you follow politics, and you must have read a lot of mainstream media to conclude that.
Well, I don't take that as a compliment, but anyway, it's more like, I view it more as a soap opera than anything else.
Okay,
I find it funny when they paint themselves into corners over and over again, and they don't know how to solve the problems, and they can't solve them because they are way above the bump in the Laffer curve. The Laffer curve is a curve between 0 and 100% tax. And if you have 0 tax, you have no state income. If you have 100% tax, you have no state income either, because no one would work if they had to give it all away. So you have to put taxes somewhere in between 0 and 100. And I think we're way beyond where the income of the government actually decreases when they raise the taxes in Sweden, and not the other way around. So, which you can see from like the government, like 12 or 16 years ago, lowered taxes, and the tax revenue went up and not down. But they refused to see that, and the former prime minister, the lady social democrat, who used to be the finance minister, she categorized the Laffer curve as being a right-wing extremist thing, which I find fascinating too.
Yeah. But she's also an economist in the IMF, isn't she?
Yes, and the current prime minister, that is a right-wing conservative with, well, in the Swedish context of the word, he is a student of Klaus Schwab and the WEF, just like everyone else, basically. So, yeah.
My biggest question when you spoke about the WEF, who controls them? It must be even bigger, even greater puppet master.
Yeah, probably BlackRock then, or something like that. But your point about the money being a more powerful force than politics can ever be is completely correct. And the only way to fix any societal problem is to fix the money first, because of this precise thing. No leader, no matter if they're democratically chosen or a dictator, can ever fix anything as long as the money is broken. And I would argue that they can't fix anything anyway, but the money is absolutely essential to them being able to do anything. Anyway, I should let you talk, Björn. Well, what's your story? Tell us a bit more about Swedish politics or whatever.
Swedish politics, I'm done with that. I don't need to speak much more about that because I did it. I have some assignments doing politics, local school, and the local community
municipality.
Council. Yeah, the council here. And I started, it must be 4 years ago, I started reading at the university again. It was like 20 years I was there last time, and I wanted to advance in politics. So I thought maybe I should get another degree, or a better degree or something to advance in politics. But when I started learning about that, and I read National Economist and political studies, I realized more and more. And then the pandemic hit and I learned about money. So I left politics, and that was a good decision because since then I have been able to work with Bitcoin and study Bitcoin and learn more and more about Bitcoin. So I was late to the party, but I think I have studied to get in line with that, not with anyone else, but understanding much more and more about Bitcoin. So to me, it's important with Bitcoin because it self-sovereignty in a way I didn't know was possible before. Most of society is based on money in one way or another, and we become slaves under the money. So it's like a hamster wheel, chasing money to chase good credit point, to get a big loan, to get a better car or a better house, to impress people we don't like the memes. What's it say? We buy things with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. Something like that. And I totally agree with that. So instead of getting a credit score to get loans, we get SAT scores in this. And I love being in a bear market right now, stacking cheap SATs again. So it's not about money, but it's about time. Time. We can save time in Bitcoin for later. That is a mind-blowing insight. To me, that's the biggest thing. Bitcoin is time in some way.
I put it like it's the perfect representation of the finiteness or scarcity of a human lifetime.
Yeah, it is.
Because it reflects when they're gone in the same way that your life is gone when you're gone. So
when time's up. Yeah.
When time's up, time's up.
It's like a saying. People say time is money, and it really is. But why then exchange our time for this monopoly money that is created out of thin air? I often think of money fiat money as a beach with sand. It's easy to go out and pick up sand. But if it was restricted to just few people to go out to the beach to pick up the sand and everyone else can stand and watch the sand, it's easier for people to understand it. Or like you have candy wrap or monopoly money. People don't understand how money is made up. My last thing in politics was to write a bill to the local council about DCA into Bitcoin. And there I explained in 6 pages about Bitcoin, why it's important and what money is. And politicians didn't know about that. And they told me afterwards, is this really true? I said, yes, money it's not worth anything. It's not even worth the ink. I think you wrote it good in your book. It says, writing dollar is more expensive than creating dollar.
Typing the word dollar is more costly energy-wise than creating a new dollar, because creating a new dollar only requires you to press 0 and enter and not 6 keys like the word dollar. So
politicians don't even know that. So I had a good chat in them. I came as public because I'm not in politics anymore. So I came as public 10 months after I proposed the bill and discussed it with the head of the politics in the community. And he said, I had to Google this, and I read it on the central bank's homepage, how money is created. And he just said what central bank says. So they don't know. And we have 290 municipal counties in Sweden. And if everyone is like him, we have a lot of work to do. And it's proof that we are very early into Bitcoin. People say we are late. I think we are extremely early.
Yeah, I think we are too. This is a multi-generational thing for sure. We're doing all this work for our grandchildren mainly. It always baffles me how little people know about money, and especially politicians. Then again, it's not hard to understand, because a curious mind, an inquisitive mind, tends to not become a politician. I mean, most politicians are there for, of course, there are exceptions to the rule, such as yourself, but most politicians are there because of some feeling they have. They're upset about some very specific societal issue, and they haven't yet connected even a small part of the dots. They see that like, oh, carbon dioxide is bad, therefore we should just put a ginormous tax on fuel, and they do not think about any of the consequences. And this is very well laid out in Seyfedin's second book, the fiat standard, as well, how that works and how incompetent people get into office. And to me, I've always viewed incompetence as the real trickle-down economy, because if you have an incompetent leader on top, you're bound to get incompetence all throughout your organization. And we have seen that over and over again. Like one of the most prevailing problems with the political institutions is that old social democratic ministers get the CEO positions of every
yes, they do.
Of all the bureaucratic institutions when they retire from politics,
or foreign diplomats in other countries representing Sweden.
Yeah, they're not representing me, that's for sure.
No, that's not me either.
Yeah, it's a bleak. I see a very bleak future there, unfortunately, and that's part of why I moved. I'm not sure about the rest of the EU either. I think it's just grades of hell and nuances of the same thing or everywhere. But Bitcoin gives me a lot of hope, and studying praxeology and understanding human action and how money works in particular gives me hope for humanity, because like all the good things we have, like this technical equipment required to do this thing, that all happened because of a somewhat free market of somewhat functioning price signals. So regardless of how they tried to destroy that, it's so powerful that it yet produced computers and microphones and cameras and the internet and all sorts of things. So that certainly gives me hope for humanity.
It's interesting that you say, because working with this the Seyfried book, the Bitcoin Standard, yeah, he wrote about the 0 to 1. That was very fascinating to me, I think, because he wrote about the cable. It's called the La Belle Epoque, and he wrote about the inventions made. It's harder to go from 0 to 1. Most of the things we have now is further developments of the things already invented, like the camera, 100 years old. Internet is like the cable, the telecommunication. We had the Atlantic cable. So everything it's hard to reinvent, to invent new things. We reinvent the old things. And that is how money incentivize, when the money works, incentivize people to acquire more money and adopting new technologies and refining technical things like you said.
They're incentivized to make more long-term decisions and produce things that will stand the test of time, basically.
Yeah, like the art.
Yeah, and the Belle Epoque, which Seyfried talks about in the book, is the epoch when most of the world was basically on a gold standard between 1850 and 1920 or something like that. There's also a book by Peter Thiel, the other half of PayPal, where Elon Musk is the other. Peter Thiel made a book about called 0 to 1, about exactly this and how hard it is to invent something truly novel and new. Having now read the Bitcoin Standard at least 5 times, as I'm sure you have at this point,
even more. Yeah.
What's your take on that book? What's the biggest thing you took away from it?
To me, the book, I read it early in my Bitcoin understanding, so I already knew a lot of this, but reading it in Swedish in my own native language, and we worked with the language a lot. So it's a big thing. It's a big difference reading a thing in Swedish or reading Swedish words. I think you understand what I mean, because you can have a Swedish sentence or an American sentence or a Portuguese sentence. You can have those words as well, and words together, and you can read it and understand it, or you read it and you don't understand it. So we worked a lot with the book to make it readable for most of the audience and even people not interested in Bitcoin before. We want you should take the book, read a few pages, and I finally get it. I connected dots. That was the main goal with the book. So even working with the book, I learned more about it, even though I read it in English before. I like the way he talked about the prehistory, about how money was made before, and the historical examples of the Rye stones, the big stones on the Yap Island, and how the O'Keefe man, the sailor who was shipwrecked, came there and, you used that kind of stone. I saw them on another island, and he came back with more stones, tried to buy people and their labor. Yeah, and every time people have learned how to make money, they will do that if that requires less effort than take it out from like the gold or the stones or making salt or leather or everything. So I like the way Seyfried frames the prehistory of money.
Money needs to be costly to produce in order for it to not be counterfeited, basically, and corrupted by whoever finds a way of producing it more cheaply than it ought to be. And that's what Bitcoin solved. Finally, it sort of completely solved it, because regardless of how much power goes into finding new Bitcoins, they're still on a fixed schedule. You cannot change that schedule. And that schedule gets recalibrated roughly every 2 weeks. Tick-tock, next clock, like a psychopathic clock. It just keeps on doing its thing regardless of opinions about it. And we have to adapt to this new reality that this thing exists now. and everyone will have to adapt to it. It's just a question of how quickly can you adapt to the new reality that is unfolding right in front of your eyes. If you draw the comparison to Blockbuster Video, we never had Blockbuster in Sweden, I believe, until maybe after Netflix was already introduced. But we had similar video stores, and like the year before they all went bankrupt, they made more profit than ever because they introduced candy aisles. At least Blockbuster did. They introduced candy aisles, big candy aisles in half of their stores, and they managed to, make a huge profits from selling candy instead. But they were measuring their success from within a system that was already breaking down. So they couldn't see the threat coming from the outside of that system.
It's a little bit like measuring Bitcoin in dollar or fiat terms.
It's the exact same thing. Yeah. It's like people who are in central banking or do macroeconomics, which is a bullshit word in itself, and politicians and all of these people, bureaucrats and EU delegates, they cannot see the problems within the system from the system itself because they don't have the framework of taking the helicopter view and viewing it from the outside, which in my opinion, only Bitcoiners have that. Only Bitcoiners are able to even imagine a world without traditional money. No one else is engaged in that kind of thinking at the moment.
It's like the crypto bros. They say it's crypto against the central banks, crypto against fiat, but they don't get it.
No, that's just more fiat. They're in crypto to make fiat gains.
Yes. And to me, Bitcoin is the revolution of money, evolution and revolution of money, because if Bitcoin doesn't succeed, the shitcoins, the altcoins won't either. So it's like Bitcoin is the 0 to 1.
But
going from 0 to 1.
Even more than that, I've written a lot about this, but it being a discovery rather than an invention, because it's so unique. The analogy I commonly use these days is the chess analogy. So there's a consensus around the rules of chess. And if you play by those rules around which a consensus has formed, you can play with every other chess player in the world, and you can enjoy all the benefits that the game of chess brings to chess. It's
interesting. You wrote that, or how do you frame that? Because I heard like that a few years ago. So I didn't mention it because I wrote my own book about Bitcoin in Swedish. So I speak about that. You have 2,000 chess, alternative chess.
Yeah.
But if you say chess, you can play with anyone. But you have all this altcoin chess.
Yeah, you can play chess cash or chess Ethereum. In chess cash, you're playing on a very large board with very few pieces. Yes. In chess Ethereum, the rules change with every move you do.
Yes.
And it's so complicated that no one really knows how it works. And you can also play doggy chess, which is just stupid. And so you can play all these other games, but you can never have the network effect of the consensus thing. And money is a winner takes all game because it is the thing that society will eventually converge on and decide that this is the most attractive thing. And as soon as a person is orange pilled, they will want nothing but Bitcoin as payment for the goods and services. Yes. The only reason that they would want fiat is to avoid trouble with the government,
because they have monopoly on money and monopoly on violence. So if I counterfeit 100 krona bill in my copier to my printer, it's a felony, it's a crime. But the government do that all the time, stealing our wealth with inflation. So
and they receive a Nobel Prize for it on occasion.
Oh yeah, it sure is. Bernanke got it this year.
Imagine that.
Creating a financial disaster, and then you get rewarded for it 2 years later.
Here's a curiosity. Do you know that the same year that Friedrich Hayek got the Nobel Prize in economics, I think that was an anomaly, that they gave an actual economist the prize. But the same year he shared the prize with Jan Myrdal.
Okay, the socialist man.
Yeah, who was an architect of like really, really bad socialist stuff in Sweden way back, where they took children away from their parents. If the children were handicapped, they were put into nursery homes, regardless of what the parents thought about the whole deal. So there were,
Yeah, but Sweden have history of being a big abuser of the population. We had race biology.
Yeah,
we have had a lot of
racial biology before Nazi Germany. So
yeah, even for them. So
yeah,
I think we invented it.
And they conducted experiments on mental health patients by giving them sugar to see how fast their teeth deteriorated. And this was like in the 50s or something. Really, but really awful stuff.
That is my next rabbit hole right now, because I read a lot of text, and I like conspiracies, but not like I go into them and think that is the truth. But I rather read a conspiracy theory than a criminal book by a famous author, because most of the conspiracies, they are grounded in some reality. Because I think money, when you started learning about money and Bitcoin, you often go to an obscure internet forum and they write about the Jewish conspiracy. And I think that's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's the fiat money. It's not the religion. It's not some families. It's definitely not reptiles. People actually think there are reptiles. In control of everything. So
but
it's the money. People that are in charge of the money, they love these conspiracies because it should focus from the conspiracy to a shit nonsense thing.
It's like all other scaremongering, like pandemics and terrorists and whatnot. It's like, hey, look here at the right hand, so you don't notice what the left hand is doing.
That's exactly what it is.
Take no notice of the man behind the curtain, type of thing.
Yeah. When I did my research for my own book now, I just released it, so it's not out yet. But it's out for buying. But I did some research to write that, and I found interesting stuff in Swedish public libraries and Swedish, the government's papers. We have this offentlighetsprincip, and that is, you can email them and say, I want to look on this topic and this topic and this, and they have to send you that. So, and most of it is even free online. Like we said there about race biology. Sweden have a great history in many obscure things. We had Swedish companies still active that financed the Nazis.
Yes. Yeah.
They are still active, and we endorse them here in Sweden because we don't know that, or it's like this, look at this, and we don't see that hand.
No, exactly.
And that's
for our listeners, this offentlighetsprincip, and that's one of the few good things about the Swedish constitution, that you all public documents are actually public. Anyone can view them, and anyone can request to read them. So only if it's like the secret police or something doing something, then you can't read it, of course, if they get a stamp of secrecy. But most official documents are open to anyone, and very few people actually use this.
Yeah, but it's very much text. So I read one text here. It's 800 pages. Yeah. So you can't, if you ask to read 10 different papers from them, you have work to do for months.
Yeah.
So it's too much to read it. So yeah, I did this investigation, and I had some tips from other people who had read this before me. So I knew where to look. I got shocked understanding how Sweden is involved in every big thing in macro politics. We have the telecom infrastructure. It's the Swedish Ericsson and the Swedish SKF, a big company, and you have Swedish
ball bearings.
ABB. They are behind everything. They are behind infrastructure all over the world. It's connected from Sweden. That's why we are neutral in politics, or in the world politics, because it's in Sweden. You also have the Facebook and Google service are in Sweden. And that's because we have the FRA law that can wire and tap everything.
Yeah. that happened like 10 years back, and it's
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah, but we are the only country that store computer data and it can be analyzed by the algorithms.
Yes, this reminds me of a story I heard in Amsterdam at the Bitcoin conference. A Dutch guy told me about just before the Second World War, there was a voluntary, they wanted to count the population. So you got a form and you could voluntarily register your faith, your religion in this document. And some people put Jew, of course. And in this particular town, when the war broke out, there was a guy who burned down the building where all these papers were stored. And that town had 15% more surviving Jews after the war than your average town. Because the Nazis, of course, they just looked up all the registers, and Hans Landa went around and shot everyone who had registered as a Jew. So it's really mind-blowing how honeypots of information like that can be so, if you get that information into the wrong hands, bad things can happen.
Yeah, it's like the insurance companies. Also in the Nazi Germany, the insurance companies, they knew where the expensive things were stored. And if they were Jewish, you could go there and take it from them because you had the registers from the insurance companies. That was run from Sweden as well.
Same thing.
Swedish people behind that as well.
Awful stuff. Anyway, your book, tell us more about your book. It's called Bitcoin-boken, right?
Bitcoin Handboken.
Bitcoin Handboken, yeah.
Bitcoin Handbook, the Handbook of Bitcoin, yes. It started out when I did this build to politics. I wrote 7 pages explaining Bitcoin, and then I realized I like to write, and I think I know a lot about Bitcoin because I listened to podcasts for 2 years constantly, reading a lot of books. And took my own conclusions and wrote a book explaining money, explaining Bitcoin and why it's important. I wouldn't say it's a new Bitcoin standard, but it's a bit of everything I learned in some way. It's quoted like it should be. So no one thinks I'm stealing. It's like knowledge is free, but I want to quote and attribute where it should be attributed. So I wanted to explain Bitcoin easy in Swedish. And I started writing this before I got involved in the Bitcoin standard. And I knew it was a Bitcoin standard in Swedish in progress, but I think, maybe I can write my own book. But then I got involved in the Bitcoin standard also. So it was parallel work. But I put the Bitcoin standard, my own book aside, and worked with Bitcoin standard for 6 months. And when it was ready, I started working with my own book again.
But did working on the Bitcoin standard help your own writing process?
It helped me, like, I could expand my thinking. Most of the text for my own book was already made because I was involved in a Swedish homepage that we have written articles about Bitcoin for 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
So I wrote half of the articles there for the community. So I took the articles and rewrote them for book format instead. So
BTC is Sui, right?
BTC Sui, it's the exchange where I work. I got the employment there a year ago. And I have, together with 4 friends, we have a bitcoinsverige.org.
Yeah, that's the one.
So I wrote some articles there and took them for more like a book conference, rewrote it.
Nice. So that's cool. So there's a book in Swedish coming out, and there's another interesting book in Norwegian that just came out.
I saw it on Twitter yesterday.
Fraud Coin. And it's written not by a Bitcoiner, but by some other guy who just wrote about how corrupt the normal money system is. Yeah. And after that, Hodling found the book and found it awesome. And now the guy is a Bitcoiner, basically.
He wasn't into Bitcoin before, was he?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think he came from a completely different background. But as all, everyone's skeptic of the current monetary system. They sooner or later they discover Bitcoin and they see it for what it is. And the same story is true for Jeff Booth's book. He started writing the Price of Tomorrow before realizing that Bitcoin is the only alternative. Like that's a conclusion he drew from the arguments he made to himself in that book.
Yeah.
Like, this insight that there can only be one deflationary money and not more of them, because that sort of takes away the whole point.
I read half his book, but I use him as a reference when I speak about. Jeff writes about for every dollar that is created for GDP, every
GDP.
dollar GDP, it's $3 in debt. So that is reading like that and understand the mechanics and the money behind it. There is no alternative. It's only Bitcoin going forward. I have a big section about skuld debt thing in my book as well, because that is something you can grasp without a proper explanation and some reference and metaphors about how it works.
Yeah, because it's so much worse than people think. Like the snowball is really big and it keeps on rolling downhill faster and faster. Half of the dollars created have been created since the pandemic broke out. So so there are $8 trillion in it's just they
took you like 150 years to create $1 trillion in debt. Now we are at 29 trillion.
Yeah, and it's getting so bad. Like the thing I put in my book was that there were $21 million created per Bitcoin mined in 2021.
That's a great quote. Is it a rounded number or is it exact number?
It's very precise actually.
Okay.
Because a Bitcoin was created on an average every 1.5 minutes, and there were $8 trillion created. Divide by 365 and by 60, and by 24 and by 60 and times 1.5, and you get
21.
You get 21 million.
That's great.
So yeah. So what are you going to any conferences next year? You have anything planned?
I was in Riga this year in September, and I would like to do that again. It was very interesting.
Yeah, we have to go next year too, right?
Yeah, I heard about the Oslo Freedom Conference. That would be very interesting. I just followed it from my screen. Yeah,
I'm glad.
And Twitter. Yes, it's really funny to go to these conferences, because at home, when I speak about Bitcoin at home with people I know or in communities like this, it's like I'm the smartest guy in the room, and I know I'm not. But like in Bitcoin terms, in my around the people I know, going to like the conference was very humbling, because I listened more than I spoke there.
Yeah.
And that is rare in Bitcoin for me, because I live in a relative small town, and not many people here are into Bitcoin or economics or have figured it out like we have done about the politics. I don't think we are wrong to it. I think everyone else is. And going to a Bitcoin conference it's my best advice to people who have not been there yet. Go there and find people to talk about Bitcoin and listen and learn.
Yeah, or download the Orange Pill app and find them through that.
Yeah, tell me about that later. Yeah.
They're our new sponsor as well. So disclaimer, we're shilling them, but it's only because we love them so much.
Is it like a date app or what is that?
It's not a dating app. That's one of the taglines. But it could be a dating app. If you want to date other Bitcoiners, that's where you find them. So it's an app that lists Bitcoiners in your vicinity, but they don't track your exact geolocation. So they give you a distance to this Bitcoiner. So you can see that there are other Bitcoiners in your town or in your municipality, and you can chat to them and look them up. And you have to pay $3 per month for the app to ensure that we don't get spam bots or shitcoiners or anything else. If you're not paying, you're the product. So that's the idea of that app. I have 2 conferences booked for this spring, and that's Bitcoin Miami and BTC Prague. And that's one that I think you should look up. It's going to be a big one. And Prague is, have you been to Prague?
No.
Fantastic city.
It's like, I understand it's an old city with old buildings and very nice.
One of the most beautiful cities I've been to. Yeah.
Oh, great. I like that. It's low time preference buildings.
Yes. And on top of the low time preference of the city, there are many low time preference people there. I I always wondered where all the Swedish libertarians were. And it turns out they were all in Prague.
Okay.
Homeschoolers and Mises Institute people, without doxing anyone. That's where we can find other Swedes. Because when you said that about being the smartest guy in the room, our friend Nico, he always says that if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the
wrong place. Yeah,
you're in the wrong room. So you should just go find another room.
Yeah, find another room and listen more than you speak. That is important.
Yeah, I'm working on that.
It's important to have this exchange, even for you. That is, I think
absolutely.
To me, you are inspired. I don't know if you've seen my book, but page 2, my dedication, I list you and Seyfedin and other people that inspired me when I got into Bitcoin, because I read your books and Seyfedin and Stefan Libera's podcast and a lot of other people. They helped me understand the Bitcoin, and I was lucky. I think I was lucky find Bitcoiners, not shitcoiners early, because it helped me understand. And that's why it's so important, if people are Bitcoiners and identify as Bitcoiners, help people out, answer to questions, because 5 minutes helping someone out, that might change that person's life forever.
Yeah. And when I get feedback from people, and that's the best warm, fuzzy feeling ever, when people have actually improved their lives because of something you did. And that's just the best thing ever that can happen to you. It can get a bit overwhelming after a while, and you have to pick and choose stuff. But yeah, who am I to say if someone is worth my time or not? I try to just, reply to as many people as I can, because why shouldn't I?
It's easy. People often tend to be a bit lazy, and that's sad. I get some emails as well and chat on Instagram and Twitter, and it's easy for me to see if they have tried self first before they ask. I can see on the question, did you try to understand it before you asked, or did you just ask me instead of doing the Google thing?
Yeah.
But if people really show with their question that they have tried to figure it out for themselves, it's more fun to answer them.
The 2 most common really not getting it at all type questions I get is like, oh, what's the price of a Bitcoin? And you tell them the price of a Bitcoin, and they go, oh, really? Who sets that price? Who decides the price? And the second question is, oh, how many do you have then?
Okay. Yeah.
And that's like, oh, could you show me your bank statement? How much money do you have? Like, who the fuck asks that?
I understand how you mean, but I like the kind of question when I can see they did try. They have put some brain activity to figure it out for themselves, and they have a good question. Like, okay, if Bitcoin doesn't succeed, what happens to my money, and what should I do? I think that is a question like they have tried to figure it out, and they have been reading some things before they ask. And I want to answer people on their questions. Now I can say, read my book. And that's good.
Yeah, that's great. And you're going to realize that having a book is awesome. Instead of giving people your CV or something, you can give them your book. It's a very good feeling.
I will send you one, because I would send
thank you
to the people I thank. And I haven't been on Twitter much lately because I was busy with my book, but the exact same day I sent it to print, I read about the Bitcoin, or was it Jameson Long?
Oh yeah.
His company went Ethereum that day.
Yeah.
The same day I sent my book to print. I think he was very important to me in the beginning, learning about Bitcoin, because I like his Bitcoin page.
It's good.
A Bitcoin homepage with a lot of information.
Lot of resources or something, right?
Yeah. So that's why I started helping out with the Swedish site, listing Swedish sources and foreign exchange sources explaining Bitcoin. I think we have your 21 series and the movies you made with I think.
Oh yeah.
We list them because I saw his page and we wanted to do something like that. ourselves in Swedish. It's very important for me. I want people to have Bitcoin information in Swedish because it lowers the threshold to understand Bitcoin.
Yeah, and it's scarce.
Yeah, it's scarce. It's not very much Swedish content out there. By the way, I as a consensus team member, we work on your books. You know that, and we have a Swedish guy. It's very good. He's one of the best Swedish Bitcoin translators. He did a fantastic job. So soon, people will be able to read your books in Swedish, and that's awesome because I like your first book, The Sovereignty. Maybe it's not the first, but the big one, Sovereignty to Math.
To me, it's the first one.
Yeah. Now, I think you had an essay.
I had another. Yeah, it's just a collection of articles, and that was just a prototype to take myself through the process of self-publishing a book, basically.
Yeah.
And then I got help with the editing of Sovereignty, and it became a lot better for it. So yeah.
I like your Sovereignty book. It's recommended for people to read it because it's the part where you write about the medicination of medicine kids and
medication kids.
Yeah, the easy way out instead of see the kid and help the kids. It's affecting. It's reading that kind of stuff in a Bitcoin book and even get it in a context, because what's that have to do with Bitcoin? It is. It's a way of thinking. You change the way to think when you learn about Bitcoin. So that book was very important to me as well, reading that.
Thank you for your kind words. It truly warms my heart to hear that.
I think it's important to have this book in Swedish. So I'm happy now. When my own book is ready now, so I will dive into the Swedish translation books.
Nice.
Because it's really helped me expanding my thinking. Reading, not reading in your own native language. I know I'm not the best speaker of English right now, but you and me, we are not native speakers. We can speak English and understand each other. And I think English people would understand us a bit. And maybe they think, oh, your grammar is wrong, they say to me, but it's the network effect of language.
Yeah.
But I miss some words to do my word perfect. But in Swedish, I can read the English text and rewrite it in Swedish words. Yeah, with better nuances. And that's why it's important to have books on your own native language to read, because if you are not into Bitcoin and you are not very good at English, because everyone isn't, if you are not English speaker, you don't understand every word in English.
No,
you don't. And if you don't are into economics and Bitcoin, it's very hard to read a Bitcoin book in English.
Yeah, but then you're the right guy for the job then, because you're understanding all the English and you find it easier to express yourself in Swedish. And I'm the other way around. I hate trying to write in Swedish because the grammar makes no sense to me, because you can construct the sentences in 3 different ways, and there's no way that speaks to you through the screen and says this is the right way to put it. But when I write in English, it's that I get that from just reading the sentence. Oh, that's it. That looks like a good sentence. That's the one I'm going to use. So that's why I chose to write in English. And whenever you do something and do it a lot, you get better at it, and you want to do more of it, and you like refine your skills. I'm currently writing a book about praxeology. So I'm back into writer's mode. I've been writing the last couple of weeks, and looking forward to having that read by people and eventually translated as well. So I'm writing like a more easily accessible book about praxeology, hopefully. Yeah, because I think that's needed.
Yeah, it is. I'm not into that much. I just heard you and some other people speak about it, so it's a topic I want to dive into. Right now, I'm reading The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Yeah. I read that. It's an excellent book.
Yeah.
It's a bit long. It's a bit long, but it's beautifully written. Very, very beautiful language in it. Yeah.
As a Bitcoiner, there are always books to read, and we don't have to read Bitcoin books, but read books about finance and economy, and like this, The Creature from Jekyll Island. It answers questions from another angle, explaining the system and explaining money and explaining the praxeology and the human actions, like reading Mises it's not about Bitcoin. It's about understanding more a broader view. So I have a lot of books on my nightstand right now. And Bitcoin helped me read again, because as an adult, you don't read much. When you graduated and you have a work in the hamster wheel with fiat, you don't read books as much. I didn't, at least. It was when I found Bitcoin, I started read again and find it interesting to read again.
Yeah. I'm devouring books now because, and I listen to them at 2.5 times the speed, and just, I know Kung Fu type of matrix type learning.
Yeah.
I almost only do audiobooks. I can't make myself look into a page that doesn't move.
Yeah, that's true. I did some audiobooks as well. I like Guy Swan. He's narrating some of your books.
Yeah.
I know
all my works. It's been doing everything. So we have a new video coming out soon, and I just heard the narration, and it's spot on as usual. So
I read your Everything book recently again, some parts of it, and it's I hear Guy Swan in my head.
Yeah. This praxeology book, I'm trying to be more rigid in my thinking and more not as ethereal or whatever. Like I in the Bitcoin books, especially the last one, I like to put some really wild and big ideas in it, which may or may not be, reality related. But with the praxeology book, you have to be much more concise and much more boxed in. And the only thing I promised myself before starting was, like, this book, I'm not going to mention Bitcoin even once.
Yeah.
I'm going to imply that having something absolutely scarce would be very, but I'm not going to say the word Bitcoin ever in the book. So that's
a great thought, because people generally that are into Bitcoin, they are a bit skeptical about Bitcoin. But if you explain it with other words, maybe they eventually will find out it's a good thing.
Yeah. A recent takeaway from my, deep dive into praxeology is how weird it is when, back to Swedish politicians here again, when they say that they're against profits in the welfare system. In praxeological terms, a profit, just like any other evaluation or value, it's entirely subjective what a profit means. So even a guy committing suicide does that because he believes he can profit from it, because he believes that the comfort of death will bring him more satisfaction than the dissatisfaction of life. So a profit is just satisfaction attained minus satisfaction foregone.
That's interesting.
So in money terms, on the market, or in what praxeology is called catalactics, it's very easy what a profit and a loss is, because you can denominate it in money. But people do things for other reasons than money. So the true motives behind, like, an actor imagines a world where his action has changed something with his surroundings in order to get into a state of less dissatisfaction. And that's why we do things at all. We have a felt uneasiness within us that we want to relieve ourselves of. And that's the basis of all human action. Even if you have a whole bunch of money and you give it all away to charity, you do that because you feel that you would psychically profit from it, because it makes you feel better than just hoarding the money or buying Lambos with it, or Gucci bags, as some shitcoiners do. So everything everyone does, they do because they believe they can profit from doing so. So in this sense, saying that you're against profits, it's a non sequitur argument. It's oxymoronic even, because your aim when saying that is to argue with the other person so that person will eventually believe it's true too. And in having done that, you've profited from arguing with the other person, because you got to a state of less dissatisfaction. So even in arguing against profits, you're seeking profit. So saying that you're against profits is, first of all, you can't even do that. And implied by that statement is that you're for losses. So you can't be against profits without being for losses. Because
Yeah.
In an unhampered free market, all interactions are voluntary. So everyone wins at all times. There are no losers. There cannot be.
But how can we apply that on Bitcoin? Because with Bitcoin, if Bitcoin price or purchase power go up, everyone's wealth go up. The same amount of percent.
Yeah.
Today, with the fiat, you have to be closer to the printer press to benefit the most.
Yes.
With Bitcoin, on a Bitcoin standard, would that be a non-problem?
Well, you probably can't get rid of violence altogether. So an absolutely free market is an imaginary construct. It can never be a true reality in the world, because there will always be aggressive behavior and people will always do bad things. There's a very low chance that we'll ever get rid of that altogether. But what we have to remember with the fiat system is that it's based on violent behavior. It's based on theft. You're giving up something every time you get paid or pay something with fiat currency. You're being bereft of parts of the purchasing power of the money you're paying with, because someone is stealing it by printing more of it. So that in itself is violence. So every time you use fiat, you promote violence. I know we're into deep territory here, but try to argue against it. I do all the time. I try to argue against all these arguments, but since they're based on, you start at man must act because otherwise man dies because he doesn't feed himself. So you get to that point. Okay, why does man act? He tries to get into a state of less dissatisfaction. How does he do that? He imagines something in the future where he has done something to better his living in some way, shape, or form. So he tries to acquire means to reach those ends. And that's it. And from that very basic notion of why people do things, you can then introduce a second actor. And what happens if they can voluntarily trade with one another? And you quickly see that they both benefit, because if they didn't, the trade wouldn't have happened. At least they believe they will benefit from the trade. And from that, you can derive, okay, so what is money? Money is something we can, it's the most saleable good in society. The thing that emerges as the unit of account and the medium of exchange that people use in order to not have to split the cow in half before giving it away for 3 goats. And you know all of this having read monetary history. But the big takeaway when you think deeply about these things is that all government is violence, and all money printing is violence.
It's by design.
It's by design, and it's awful, and it's criminal, and it's happening everywhere, all at once, all the time. So that's the sad state of reality. The good state of reality is that we have Bitcoin now, and we have a sly roundabout way to circumvent all the bullshit.
Yeah, we have an alternative to that. Opt out from the system and start using Bitcoin instead.
Absolutely.
What would you say people should invest all their money in Bitcoin, or just the one they want to keep, or just the money they can afford to lose, or how do you frame it? I think of it like 3 different ways. Someone said it's always the rule: just invest money you can afford to lose. And you have this saying about Bitcoin: just invest all the money you want to save or you want to keep.
You can't afford to lose.
Yeah, only keep as much fiat as you can afford to lose. And you have 2 different ways of seeing this. Is it really 100% Bitcoin going to succeed? I don't know, but maybe
not for us, but for our grandchildren, maybe.
And in that scenario for the grandchildren, there are only 21 million Bitcoins. No person would need one whole Bitcoin.
No,
because it's going to be if Bitcoin succeed, and we think it will, but if it does, it will be so scarce that 21 million Bitcoins it's nothing. You need
it is because and they on layer 2 they're infinitely divisible, almost like if you never settle, which is not really. There are some technical details about how that works and to which extent you can do that, but each Bitcoin is divisible into 100 million sats.
Yes.
And So 2.1 quadrillion is a lot of units, and that's plenty enough for it to go around for 8 billion. Like, people don't see the difference between a million and a billion, which is about a billion, and the difference between a billion and a trillion is about a trillion. So if there are 2.1 quadrillion bitcoins, that's like, we're 8 billion people. That's plenty enough for all of us.
And with that in mind, I'm thinking like this, because in Bitcoin community, I think Bitcoin, so-called, I don't like the term Bitcoin maximalist, because was Vitalik who the word.
No, we're shitcoin minimalists. That's what we are.
Yeah, shitcoin minimalists. But I don't like the term Bitcoin maximalist. But if you talk to Bitcoin maximalists and people like you and other people speak about Bitcoin a lot, it's like, just buy stack sats, buy Bitcoin, hold it forever. But you have this. If you are here right now and you have a family, how you must think of Justin as well. Because Bitcoin is a long-term saving. And you don't need full Bitcoin in 100 years to give to your grandkids.
No.
Because so I think people. Bitcoiners, we tend to miss the part of, even if we want no time preference and think of the future, we should weight our opportunity cost right here, right now. But I think we should live more right now as well.
Yeah. The only thing you have is the present moment.
Yes.
So
because time is scarce, and if we want Bitcoin to succeed, but like, if we only have a spare time on Earth and we have 20 years with Bitcoin monetizing and becoming big, I think wasting 20 years waiting for Bitcoin to rise in price, to me, that's wrong. That's wrong approach to Bitcoin.
Absolutely. And I agree totally. So my stance on this is like, since the Bitcoins you own are your responsibility through and through. So the only one you have to blame if you lose is yourself. You're the one that didn't protect them enough. So you have to weigh that in with everything else you happen to own, like a house or a car or whatever it is, fiat currency or whatever the other things are, whatever the other things you own are. Having 10 million euros in Bitcoin and 2 houses, then you probably have your hodl is too big. Like, your stack is too big because you could lose your seed phrase. You could lose your keys. You could, God forbid, be hacked or whatever happens. So you have to weigh that against the other. The more important thing, I think, is to not only stack and hold Bitcoin, but to live Bitcoin and to wield Bitcoin, as Nico says, to use Bitcoin for something good. So pursuing might not have to be a Bitcoin career, but a career in which you can get at least parts of your salary paid in Bitcoin. It's a huge step, and that's like the equivalent of turning off the TV every once in a while. So that's if we really want to, make Bitcoin's functionality go up, we need to not spend Bitcoin, but get paid in Bitcoin. And when we do, we simultaneously take away power from the old system. And then you realize how fucking early we are, because this is so small. If you look at how many retailers and services online that actually take sats, it's remarkably few still in 2022. So that's the real turning point, when people start accepting nothing but sats for their goods and services. Right now, there are plenty of sites, my own included, where you can pay both in sats and in euros. I mean, I sell the books mainly. If you buy them from Consensus, you can use Lightning and on-chain. When I sell my stupid T-shirts and coffee mugs, I charge people in euros on the site. But if you just DM me, I'll gladly send you an invoice, and you can buy them for sats as well. So I accept both everywhere. But I shouldn't really, because every time I accept fiat, I steal from my kids. So the only reason I do it is to have a fiat income to show the tax authorities whenever they happen to knock on my door. So that's the trick. So
Yeah.
do something that is somehow related to Bitcoin. That's as important as hodling.
Interesting. Yeah. I think about that sometimes a lot, I should say, because right here, right now, doing fun stuff with the kids or saving sats for them for the future.
Yeah.
When I got the family, it's Bitcoin changed the way to think, and family and kids change the way to think.
Yeah.
Because you want to be here with them and you want to give the best for them later on. That's why getting to the mental phase where you see, okay, how much Bitcoin is enough? Is it enough with 0.1 or 1.0 or?
Well,
that's a number for everyone to figure out for themselves. To me, it's not important to have the biggest stack. It's to buy time in the future, and Bitcoin enables that thing. And if and when Bitcoin becomes the big thing, everything divided
not if,
when it becomes everything divided by 21 millions, no one needs one full Bitcoin. And that's why it's important to think right now, also doing good things at the present time.
Yeah, but no one needs $1 trillion now either. So
no, but
it's still fun to be a trillionaire, because you have a lot of more options.
Yeah,
and you can be altruistic as hell having $1 trillion, of course. So money in that sense is just an amplifier of your personality. You can afford to do more things with your time, and you can start business. And by the way, praxeologically speaking, again, there's a difference between saving and entrepreneurship. And saving is not a low time preference thing. Saving is actually a high time preference thing. The low time preference thing is to invest your money into a business that you believe will make a profit for you in the long run. So that's the correct framing. Having said that, though, hodling is not entirely similar to saving, especially not in this adoption phase, because right now hodling sort of is an investment, since Bitcoins go up in purchasing power over time. And it sort of makes the whole saving thing very interesting, because at some point, businesses, imagine that we're in a totally hyper Bitcoinized world, and every single transaction is made with Bitcoin or it's barter between two goods. In that world, very few stacks will go up in terms of Bitcoin.
Yes.
Almost all Bitcoin stacks will have to go down in order for people to just survive and go about their day and buy food. So in that world, you might even start a business not to make a profit in Bitcoin terms, but in purchasing power terms. So that you still lose Bitcoins, your stack will still shrink, but at a slower pace than had you not invested them at all. So you're looking at the angle of the curve rather than the curve itself in terms of Bitcoin. So you're searching for a higher purchasing power, not a higher stack of Bitcoins. And this world is so hard to imagine, because it's like 1 divided by current world, by 1 divided by clown world. It's a very, very interesting thing to think about, because it's so different. It's the literal opposite of today.
Yeah, and that's why it's so mind-blowing to take 1 day's labor in fiat paycheck. One day would be equivalent of 1 full Bitcoin mining stack in like 60, 70 years.
Yeah.
You can buy a whole block subsidy for action.
That's
today we have 6.25 Bitcoins every 10 minutes and like 900 per day. And in 50 years, the same amount of one day's Bitcoin, we can buy 1 day of Bitcoin very cheap today.
Yeah.
But in 50 years and save it for later.
And just rewind the clock and look 10 years back. Like if you bought a Bitcoin for, whatever you bought it for, like there are thousands upon thousands of ASICs running day and night, consuming the same amount of power as Finland in order to acquire what you could buy for $10. So and that will continue into the future. So that's fascinating.
I'm happy I didn't find Bitcoin earlier, because if I had found Bitcoin or Bitcoin found me in like 10 years, I definitely would have sold. Because it's not easy to hold Bitcoin. It's
both difficult and easy at the same time.
Yeah, because it's easy to hold because you don't have to do anything, but you have to have the mind to hold it, even if it doubles or triples or 10 doubles in worth, or you lose half your money and you think, oh no, I'm going to lose even more. Maybe I sell. When you find out what Bitcoin really is, that is when this life starts, I think. When you understand money and you understand Bitcoin and you evaluate and frame everything in Bitcoin, you go to the plastic shit store and see, oh, I have a sweater with a Santa Claus on and big red nose, only 10 euros. And I buy it because it's fun to have for Christmas. And in opportunity cost in Bitcoin, it's a lot. I saw like that, and it's plastic shit for kids, and kids love it, and they want it. And Daddy, can I have this? No, you can't. I won't. I will give you $10 of stuff instead.
Where can people find your book?
Right now, it's very hard to find, but we are working on to publish it on Consensus.
Yep, perfect.
It's going out on Consensus and also on the Swedish internet libraries, of course, the Swedish bookstores. It's written in Swedish, so I think it's mainly for the Swedish audience, and the Swedish audience know where to find me. Because my book is written in Swedish, so I don't think people in other countries will read it. But we will have it on Consensus and on the Swedish bookstores.
Is that including physical Swedish bookstores? Because those are really hard to get a book into.
Yeah, it is, because I listed my book in the right way. I started to really get it into Swedish bookstores. I started a publishing house, a Swedish publishing house, and listed on the where you list books in libraries for everything. So it should be out if enough people go to their local bookstore and ask for it, it will be easy for them to find and take to the store.
All right. Nice.
I will in the local shops where I live. I spoke to 3 different bookstores, and they will have me sitting there, sign books and sell my books on the shelf. And I promised them some commission on the books. So
nice.
It's easy when you live in the town. I went down to my bookstore and they want the local authors. And since I go into their system, they will. They are in a big, business chain with more stores in other towns. So I think
what is that? Academy Bokhandeln?
Academy Bokhandeln and Ugglan, the owl. So when you are listed in their system, it's like the McDonald's in El Salvador. You are in like everyone. The system is there. So we will do the Bitcoin standard, the Swedish Bitcoin standard in the Swedish bookstores as well. So it's easy to list and find, because Bitcoiners know what Consensus is. They find Consensus Network and they find the Bitcoin books. Getting into the local bookstore and the Swedish bookstore where normies shop that not are into Bitcoin yet, but maybe they will buy a book about economy or finance, and they click on that, and in the sidebar, maybe you like this book. That's good.
You can of course find the Swedish translation of the Bitcoin standard on bitcoinbook.shop, which is one of the addresses that will take you to Consensus Network. Consensus.network with a K is also where you find the Consensus Network. The links to all of that are in the show notes. Björn, you're Björn Tisjö. You're Björn Tisjö. Swedes will understand without the pricks.
The dots, say dots instead.
Yeah, but it sounds funnier to say the prick. This is an internal joke because the word for dot in Swedish is prick.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my book would be listed in the Swedish shop, and we also have the Swedish community also in our forum groups. So I will let people know they can find it, and I think they should be together because I showed them here. They have the same size.
Your book has a really beautiful cover.
Yeah, my cover is Adam Kadmon, the author of the Bitcoin religion symbols.
Oh yeah.
It's been on Scarcity. Adam,
I think I met him in Miami. I'm not entirely sure. So that's where you can find the books. And there's also, for Swedes, there's a Bitcoin group, Bitcoin only group on Discord.
Yes, it's called Bitcoin Sverige. Bitcoin Sverige or .org.
Yes, another Swedish resources you should look up. Simon Lind's pod. It's called Bara Bitcoin. And that's the only one that's Bitcoin only in Swedish. The other Bitcoin pods in Swedish are teeming with shitcoinery, unfortunately.
It's more profitable to talk about altcoins. And that's why.
In the short run, yes. In the long run, absolutely not.
No.
So
I will visit Simon and his podcast and speak Swedish in a week or two.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
I like to speak Swedish. I can express myself much better in my own language.
This is also funny because I've done so much, pods and everything about Bitcoin in English. So the first time I talked to Simon, it was very, very hard to get anything through.
You think Bitcoin in English, I guess.
I do. Yeah, and because Bitcoin Twitter is in English and everything.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a really strange thing, really, but that's what happens, I guess.
Björn, I liked what you were saying at the beginning about kind of your involvement in the local politics of it all, and you've said that you've stepped away from that, but do you still see some value in engaging with the political system in order to further Bitcoin?
I think it's a good start because in the local, I don't know every country, but in Sweden we have the local community. In Sweden there are 40,000 politicians, and most of them aren't doing it for their job and making money off it. It's normal people. They care about their school and their community and their elderly and where they live. So they engage in politics and they do some time every month helping out with politics, taking decisions and looking what do the money go to. So that's good. It's like a grassroots speaking to local politicians. It's not like the same talking to the prime minister. I want to do politics close to the people, because in the parliament where I sit in the local, there are 49 persons. They are there because they like where they live and they want to improve their kids or their parents' homes. So if I go there and talk about Bitcoin to them and explain how money works, it's another connection to them, and they listen more because we are local. It's not always about red or blue party or left or right, because it's some places in Sweden you have political opponents working together because they say it's for the community's best. So people often think it has to start at the top. I think it should start in the bottom, because the people in the political, it's not the bottom but it's the bottom because it's the closest politics. If you start close, people in the local, they will eventually, when it's election 4 years later, they are probably gonna be on the list for the national party. So it's important to talk to Bitcoin, talk to economics and finance to the locals, because they eventually will be the big politicians one day, or their friends in the party will be.
Or they won't, because they learned about Bitcoin.
And they learn about Yes.
They dropped out of politics altogether.
My own book, I will do some funding and send it to the people here where I live. It's 50 books I will send for free to them because I spoke to Bitcoin. I spoke Bitcoin with them, and it's on my Twitter page, Björn Tisjö. It's called, it's just like that on Twitter. When I give them, I show them, it's like a coup. I went in there with the Bitcoin standard, giving it to the parliament and say, read it and have it in the community house here, and spoke about Bitcoin to them since I had this bill. That's my way to get the politicians more aware of Bitcoin. I don't think they went home straight that night, bought Bitcoin, but next time they hear about Bitcoin might be at the double price of today. And then they find, okay, it's not dead yet. To me, I heard about Bitcoin first time like 10 years ago. I never bought. And then I heard about it again. I never bought. I thought, oh, is it still alive? People say that was a bubble. And about 10 years later, 2019, 20, I started hear about Bitcoin again. And then, okay, maybe I should investigate this because it's never dying. Start talking about Bitcoin. We have to get the people aware of it and explain. You don't have to explain Bitcoin, just explain fiat. That's enough. To understand Bitcoin, you have to understand fiat, I think. That helped me.
Absolutely. I mean, you cannot understand the solution if you don't first understand the problem.
I have a big section in my book about the petrodollar and how the environmental ESG groups are totally wrong on the ball, because they think the current system is good. And Greta Thunberg even said, we have to save the banks. She said, the banks are the problem. They create money out of thin air and enslave us everyone.
That was framed slightly wrong. So I hate to defend Greta Thunberg because I disagree with her on absolutely everything.
Okay, but didn't she say we have to save the banks?
No, she said if we can save the banks, we can save the environment.
So that's true.
Yeah, if we can save them, if we have the money to save the banks, we have the money to save the environment.
Oh, it was like that.
And what she doesn't understand there is, like, in accumulating the money to save the environment, all you will do is save the banks.
Yes. And the petrodollar is I like the Gladstein article about the petrodollar.
Yeah. There was a video made from that, was really good.
Okay. I just read it. I'm the reading guy. Well, he explained how the petrodollar and the fiat and the world economy is tied together with the dollar and the oil. And as long as we have the dollar, we can't have a green planet.
No. And people who want to, since oil is priced in dollars, whenever the Fed prints new dollars, they print oil.
Yes.
Stealing it from everyone else. And there were two people in the Arab world has been trying to stop this dollar hegemony lately. Saddam Hussein and Omar Gaddafi. Both of those countries were destroyed by the US. We cannot tell if it was because of the petrodollar thing or not. Of course, it sounds conspiratory and everything, but those are the facts. They tried to get rid of the dollar and sell oil for other currencies, and they got invaded. So there's that.
Yeah, so that's the point. I mean, we have to educate people. If you don't educate them about Bitcoin, we have to educate people about fiat and the current system. And that will lead to Bitcoin or something else. Many people are stuck in the gold, but gold have proven itself to be manipulated, and gold are controlled by central banks.
Yeah, confiscated. Like, what's Sailor's words about that? Like, if you are to store gold for 100 years, what town do you choose? What city do you store it in? And there isn't one. All the cities that have hoarded gold for a long time have been, people have wanted that gold over the ages, and wars have been fought over it. So storing huge piles of gold is probably not a good thing. Better to keep 12 words in your head. All right. It was great to have you on, Björn, and I'm so happy that the the Bitcoin Standarden, the Swedish translation of the Bitcoin standard, is done. I'm very happy about that, and I'm happy with that. I could contribute to it.
You wrote a good forward and helped out to it. Great talking to you about. During the process, we had some good talks, and I must say it's not one-man show. We're a whole team, and I really would.
Yeah. So shout out to everyone on the team. They've done a fantastic job. Yeah.
They sure do.
And there's proof of work for you because they really put in the hours. So thanks to everyone involved for doing this thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So very happy to have that out. Happy to see that you wrote your own book during the process. That's absolutely awesome. And happy that is available for purchase right now as well. And hopefully people can get their hands on that before Christmas too, maybe, fingers crossed. And happy to have you here, and hope to see you in real life soon again, maybe in Prague or something.
Yeah, Prague, I will investigate it. Thank you for the tip.
And we'll see each other on the internets, of course.
Yeah, thanks again, Björn. I really appreciate having you on the show. Knut's pretty much said everything. Just before we close the show off, just a reminder. First of all, check out the Orange Pill app. It's the brand new social networking app for Bitcoiners, not a dating app. They're a Bitcoin-only company, so...
Can be a dating app.
Can be a dating app. Good point. And it helps you find local plebs in your area to help speed up hyper-Bitcoinization in your local area. I think those are a lot of synergize as well with a lot of the teams we've discussed today. So check that out. It's out for iPhone and relatively soon for Android. So check that out. And you can pay either with dirty fiat or with Lightning these days. So that's always a good thing. And also, the best way you can support this podcast is by listening on a value for value podcasting app such as Fountain or Breeze. You can stream us some sats or send us a boost if you think this has been good value for your time. And we always appreciate if you can share the content or subscribe to the Consensus Network YouTube channel. And Consensus Network as well is the platform that we're building with. They do all the translations of these Bitcoin books, the Swedish that Björn has been talking about here, also Finnish and plenty of other languages. So check out consensus.network or bitcoinbook.shop. All the links will be in the description here. So check that out. And finally, for everything Knut Svanholm, his nice, ugly Christmas sweater, and all the other great things, knutsvanholm.com. Anything else, Knut?
Well, wishing you all a great rest of the week. So thank you, everyone, and see you next time.